Alright guys, John from Solo Boss. The super pump is not on the truck anymore. Let's talk about why it happened, why I let it happen, and the main reason why it did happen. So let's run through everything, what led to that decision and why I did it. Alright, the super pump. The super pump is an awesome pump. It's got power, it's got flow. It's just absolutely awesome. I love the super pump. I booked my flights. I flew over to the States. I went to see it in person. Looked at the pump, what they were running it with, what they were running it on. I wanted to check everything out. I wanted to see it in person. I wanted to hear the engine, because when I diagnose a problem, I want to know, the engine's not quite running right because it doesn't sound like it's just ticking along. So that's what we did. I went over to the States for a week. We were down at Cody's for 2 days, learning about the super pump and everything that we need. The biggest thing, we run our super pump when I first got back. We got 2 super pumps in Australia. One I set on Caleb's truck. We're setting that truck up now. He's just modifying a hose reel, but we'll get into that later. But the super pump on the truck, we tried to run it with deep cycle batteries. Come out one by one. That battery's sitting back down there. So definitely got to get the solar hooked up, because we got running the 120 AGMs. I haven't changed these out because this is my original system. So we're running this on the super pump just to see how it goes. We get double the capacity of the lithiums, but for now I want to run the deep cycle because I want to see how they stand up. They're probably not going to stand up. AGMs. So lead acid batteries for whoever's listening. And the biggest thing with lead acid batteries or AGMs is they don't have the amperage draw on the batteries for the super pump. They're great for small amperage draw 24 volt systems, but not for a large system like the super pump. So I personally wanted to see what would happen. I probably knew what was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. But because we want to sell these in Australia, and I want to import these and get them onto people's trucks to be more efficient, use less fuel, less maintenance, longer term they're going to be more cost efficient than your gas powered systems and your 24 volt systems. So I went down the route of trying to destroy my super pump to educate myself and to educate everybody else, to say, right, don't call me up and say I'm gonna wire this up to AGM batteries, because it ain't gonna work, because there ain't enough power in those batteries to pump and feed. So yeah, like I was saying, up in the roof, we come down, the batteries were sitting on 21, so they were depleted like mad. We've been running for 4 hours. Number one, we haven't got our solar hooked up, so that was the first problem. Is we had the AGM batteries, we couldn't charge them fast enough for the amperage pull, because if you've got AGM batteries, you got about 50% of that battery capacity before you start losing voltage and power. So we run the machine for, it was about 4 days on those batteries before they were completely depleted. So the pump got hot at stages. That's the super pump for you. Pretty much by the end of today, we run it flat out for about 5 hours. It's hot, but it hasn't let us down, it hasn't slowed down. The batteries haven't really been charged today, so I've got what I expected out of the battery banks. It overworked, and initially, so I'm quite sure the engine, the motor itself on the super pump is fine. I'm quite sure it's the heads that are cactus, and because of that heat transfer. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull them off and have a quick look at them. But we've got a new super pump and head kit coming from the States to put back on the system so we can run it on the lithium batteries. But we run through the problems that we had. So we had lack of power through AGM batteries. So within the first 4 days, we had low voltage problems, we had pumping problems due to it wouldn't push up into the pump. We completely depleted the batteries, we couldn't charge the batteries. So we basically killed those two. We ripped them out on the Thursday, we put lithiums in, and then we run the lithiums for a whole day on the Friday without a DCD charger and without my solar hooked up. But we've done a roof clean and 2 house washes, and that's where we're sitting at the end of the day without charging. Just to see how much they would deplete a battery. So I run the chance of killing $1,800 of lithium batteries, but I wanted to see the power pulling on a 1 day event. So we got down 25% out of our lithium battery and never had any problems with power delivery, efficiency. The pump just blew out everything that we needed to. So we had a really good result with the lithium. Then we hooked up a DCD charger. Then we hooked up the solar. So everything topped up all the way to the top. So my batteries charge all the way up to 100%. On an average day, I think the biggest day that we've had, the batteries went down to 28. Alright, so we've got the truck idling. As you can see, it's just drawing in about 4 amps. They went down 28% on the meter, and they've always come back up to 100 for the day. So with the lithium battery, you're not even using the full capacity, because it can go all the way down to 6% or 10%, depends on the cutoff on a lithium battery. But literally, to get it down to that percentage, you would have to be running that pump for 2 days, 3 days without charging it. So I like to keep my system charged up through solar for the truck. I don't run any power cables out. I don't run any chargers back to the house. It's all powered by my truck, and that's the way I like it. I do not like to be running. I used to do it with my trailer. I used to run the lead out through the footpath back to the house, and then you'd be worried about somebody tripping over your lead or somebody coming out and playing with it. So I've decided to build a system with solar and hooked up to the truck. So we're going to build these systems, and we're going to design a box, so you can pretty much just buy a box. But let's get on to, we're going to work with Nick from Softwash Australia. Me and Nick are going to build and design 2 skids, an entry level skid, and then like a top of the range skid type thing that you can put on your ute. One's going to be where you're probably going to have to hook it up to the house to charge it, and then you could probably add solar to it. And then the other one will be top of the range, where it'll be hooked to the truck, hooked to the solar up the top. You can hook both of them that way, because of the battery systems. If you've got a DCD charger, you can hook it straight to the truck and straight to solar. That way you're constantly feeding these things. And that way it's just an initial setup, but then you don't have that cost every day. Petrol in my generator, and I don't have to put petrol in my gas power system
It's all there. It's all ready to go. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm just trying to troubleshoot, and for anybody to come back to us and say, I killed the pump and this is why. But the biggest problem that we're going to have is these hose reels, the 1/2 inch feeds. There's a little restriction there, as you can see from my videos previously. We're not quite shooting as far as the Americans do because of the restrictions. If we got rid of that restriction and had a higher feed through, which we're probably going to look at later on, I was getting 63 feet, and then in the States we were shooting over 75 foot. So big restriction, which is 10 foot, which at the end of the day is not the be all and end all, because that's a long way to shoot. If you need a roof or something, if you've got a pitchy roof or a big commercial roof, then yeah, you need the distance. But on an average house, you don't really need that distance. The super pump shoots up 15 meters, so that's like 4 or 5 stories. You don't need any more than that. Any more than that, you're probably going to get abseilers, or you're going to get a drone to clean or whatnot. So I'm going to leave it there. We're waiting on the new one. I've just identified the elephant in the room, why it's not on the truck.